You have signed 5 contracts in your life, each one written in invisible ink, yet they control you every single day without your conscious consent. You never saw them and you never read them, but somehow you live by their unspoken rules, letting them dictate your choices, your emotions, and your peace. When you break them, guilt strikes deep into your chest, and you feel like you have betrayed something sacred inside yourself. When you obey them, you slowly lose the essence of who you truly are. 1. The silence debt. It always begins quietly, almost harmlessly, with a moment that passes without confrontation. A line crossed while you tell yourself to let it go. You say nothing because you convince yourself it is not worth the fight, and you want to keep the peace rather than disturb it. But silence is not neutral. It is a growing debt that compounds every time you swallow your truth. Each time you stay quiet, the walls around your voice rise higher, and your sense of power slowly dissolves. One day you wake up and realize your voice no longer belongs to you, because you have trained yourself to disappear whenever discomfort appears. Manipulators understand this better than you think. They read your silence like a detailed map of permission. They know exactly how far they can go before you finally shatter, and by then, your silence has already signed the contract that says, "I will not challenge you." The longer you stay quiet, the louder their control becomes, echoing inside your chest like a verdict you never agreed to. 2. The borrowed identity. You believe you know who you are, but if you look closer, you may find pieces of other people living inside your reflection. We mirror those we love because connection feels safer than individuality, and imitation feels easier than rejection. We absorb their tone, their rhythm, their fears, until our identity becomes a collage of borrowed fragments. And when they leave, you do not just lose a person, you lose the scaffolding that held your sense of self together. That emptiness is the borrowed identity, the collapse that comes when the reflection you built disappears. Without realizing it, you have already signed the line that says, "I will become whoever you need me to be." This is how people forget the shape of their own soul, fading slowly until their reflection becomes a stranger's face. 3. The compassion landmine. Some people never ask for help directly. They design circumstances that demand it, crafting their helplessness like a trap for your empathy. If you choose to help them, you enter an endless loop of obligation that drains your time and your strength. If you refuse, guilt gnaws at your conscience until you question your own kindness. It is the perfect emotional bomb because whichever wire you cut, it still explodes in your heart. They build their crisis around your availability, and their chaos becomes the leash that keeps you bound. This contract silently declares, "I will always be available even when it destroys me." And the cruelest part is they never had to say it. You signed it with your kindness, thinking it was love. 4. The reality infection. When you spend too much time near someone, your mind begins to align with their rhythm, syncing to the frequency of their thoughts. Their worldview becomes your lens, reshaping the way you see everything around you, even your own worth. Their fears become your limitations, and their doubts start whispering inside your decisions. You stop seeing reality as it is and begin to experience it as they interpret it through their emotional filter. The paranoid infect you with fear, the victim infects you with hopelessness, and the narcissist infects you with self-doubt. It is not just influence anymore, it is immersion in a world that is not yours. You start living inside someone else's hallucination, and the longer you remain there, the harder it becomes to find your way back. This contract says, "I will see the world the way you do, even if it blinds me completely." 5. The invisible auction. Every relationship is an invisible auction where attention and care are traded like fragile currency. The more you chase, the less you are worth, and the one who appears to care less always holds the power. You double text, you over-explain, you apologize for existing, and with every effort, your perceived value quietly drops. They remain calm, distant, and unbothered, watching their worth rise as yours crumbles under the weight of your effort. This marketplace runs on desperation, and the more you bid for connection, the further you drift from self-respect. But here lies the paradox. The very moment you stop bidding, you become priceless. Because self-worth can never exist in someone else's silence. It only grows in your own. That is the moment the final contract shatters. The one that whispered, "I will prove my worth to be loved." All 5 of these hidden patterns are connected, forming one master system. The invisible contract framework that governs silent suffering. Silence says, I will not challenge you. Identity says, I will become who you need. Compassion says, I will always be available. Reality says, I will see the world your way. Value says, I will prove I am enough. You never agreed to any of these. They were written for you by fear, by guilt, and by love that confused control with care. But now that you can see them, awareness tears through every invisible signature you ever made. You do not owe silence, you do not owe identity, and you do not owe the rescue of those who refuse to save themselves. Tear the contracts, reclaim your mind, and watch how quiet the manipulators become when you finally begin to speak your truth aloud.